Every single time you click Buy Now, check your bank balance, or log into your favorite online store, you are actually stepping into a massive digital fortress. But here's the fascinating reality. Behind your screen, there's an invisible, relentless war being waged over the walls of that exact fortress. Today, in this explainer, we're going to unpack the architecture of that battle. We'll look at the sophisticated threats targeting our data, and more importantly, how we build the defenses to keep our digital lives secure. To truly understand this landscape, we're pulling our blueprint straight from Dr. Faisal Zulamadi's academic curriculum at the School of Technology Management and Logistics. This gives us a rigorous, university-level framework for what industry pros call information assurance. We're going to look objectively at how the modern internet has seen a massive shift toward profit-induced cybercrimes, and how institutions are working tirelessly to secure electronic commerce against these evolving threats. So here is our roadmap for the breakdown. First, e-commerce under attack. Second, the cybercriminal underground. Third, phishing, fraud, and spam. Fourth, the CIA security triad. And finally, building digital defenses. Let's get right into it. All right, part 1, e-commerce under attack. The sheer scope of protecting information systems is absolutely massive. Institutions tracking this, like the CSI Computer Crime and Security Survey, find a landscape of constant, nonstop probing. In any e-commerce environment, attacks basically focus on 3 primary vulnerabilities, which form a triangle: the client, the server, and the communications pipeline. The pipeline is the internet channel itself. The server is the business's computer system. But the client, well, that actually means you and me. Our personal devices and our own behaviors represent a major structural weakness in those fortress walls that attackers absolutely love to exploit. And part of the problem here is that the internet's very design is inherently vulnerable. Take the domain name system, or DNS, which translates the web addresses you type into the numeric IP addresses that actually route the traffic. Because this fundamental infrastructure was built for sharing information, kind of like a highly trusting academic library rather than securing it like a bank vault, it leaves the door wide open. It paves the way for cross-border cyber wars, corporate espionage, and destructive attacks that take advantage of these basic routing protocols. Which brings us to part 2, the cybercriminal underground. You know, this underground isn't just a few rogue kids in a basement anymore. It's a massive, highly lucrative economy. Today, there are thousands of hidden e-markets functioning as digital bazaars where criminals sell stolen credit card numbers, social security numbers, and passwords. To harvest this data, these syndicates rely on malware, a catch-all term for malicious software. Now, we need to make an important distinction based on our source material here. While a hacker is technically just someone who gains unauthorized access, sometimes just out of curiosity, a cracker is a malicious hacker. Crackers are the ones actively deploying these digital weapons with the express intent of stealing data and causing real damage. To scale their operations, these crackers use malware to infect everyday computers, turning them into what the industry literally calls zombies. When hundreds of thousands of these hijacked zombie computers are networked together, they form a botnet. Crackers use these massive botnets to launch denial of service or DOS attacks. This is where they flood a target website with so much junk data traffic that its resources completely overload and the site just crashes. Another devastating weapon in their arsenal is the Trojan horse. Just like the ancient myth, this is a program that looks like it has a completely normal, useful function, but it contains a hidden security risk. A prime example is the banking Trojan. It just lies dormant on your computer until you visit an online banking or e-commerce site. Then, it springs into action using techniques like keylogging to capture your keystrokes and silently record your passwords. It's literally an invisible siege tactic, breaching the gates right from the inside. Let's move on to part 3, phishing, fraud, and spam. Stepping away from complex code for a second, attackers often realize the easiest way through a firewall is just asking for the keys. They rely on social engineering, non-technical attacks that manipulate human psychology. A massive part of this is phishing. This is where attackers steal a target company's identity, making their fake emails or websites look perfectly legitimate to trick you into handing over personal information. They'll even use page hijacking to redirect users to malicious sites or create splogs, spam blogs, to deliberately subvert search engine algorithms and push their fraudulent websites right to the top of your search results. So, facing this really dark reality of relentless malware, massive botnets, and psychological manipulation, we have to stop and ask a pivotal question. Why do we actually need a formal e-commerce security strategy? Why not just fix things as they break? Well, because it isn't just about fixing a hacked server. It's a fundamental dilemma of balancing smooth business operations with the prevention and detection of unauthorized use of a company's brand and assets. We need a strategy to shift from being reactive victims of data breaches to becoming active defenders.
And that leads us to our solution in Part 4, the CIA Security Triad. Industry professionals use a foundational architectural model to balance three absolutely crucial elements. First, confidentiality, ensuring data privacy so sensitive info stays away from unauthorized eyes. Second, integrity, the assurance that data hasn't been secretly modified in transit, that the message sent is exactly the message received. And third, availability, ensuring that authorized users have timely, reliable access to the website when they need it. Remember those DOS attacks we mentioned? Those are a direct breach of availability. Together, the CIA triad forms the bedrock of information assurance, or IA. To guarantee IA, organizations implement deterring measures to make criminals abandon an attack and detection measures to spot an intruder if they do get in. They even conduct what's known as penetration testing. This is a fascinating process where security teams actively simulate a cracker's attack on their own systems to hunt down vulnerabilities before the real criminals ever find them.
Finally, Part 5. Building digital defenses. So what is the actual operational blueprint for defending our transactions? It's a multi-layered process. First, you defend access using controls like passwords and biometric systems. Think fingerprints or facial recognition. Second, you secure the broader network itself. Third, you implement administrative controls and rules. Fourth, you actively train your people to protect against social engineering and fraud. And fifth, you prepare for the worst. You need disaster preparation and a business continuity plan, ensuring the business can actually keep running even after a critical breach occurs. A massive part of defending that data flow we just talked about is encryption. And this relies on two main methods. Symmetric encryption uses a single shared secret key to both scramble and unscramble the message. The Data Encryption Standard, or DES, is a historic example of this. But asymmetric encryption is much more mathematically complex. It uses a pair of keys. A public key is available to anyone to encrypt a message, but only your specific, tightly guarded private key can decrypt it. Now, this asymmetric encryption is managed through a public key infrastructure, or PKI, which relies on certification authorities to issue digital certificates that verify our identities. But it is super important to point out the flaws with PKI noted in our source material. First, it's not highly effective against malicious insiders or bad employees. Second, individual users often protect their private keys incredibly haphazardly, like writing their master password on a sticky note and tucking it right under their keyboard. And third, these certification authorities are largely unregulated, self-selecting organizations, which creates a bit of an underlying trust issue in the whole system. We're going to wrap up today's explainer with a pretty provocative learning objective directly from Dr. Zuhamadi's materials. Understand why it is not possible to stop computer crimes. The hard truth is, digital security isn't a final destination. It's a continuously evolving arms race. As our defenses become more sophisticated, so do the underground networks trying to breach them. You, the client, are a crucial part of that vulnerability triangle we discussed, which means your vigilance is literally the front line. So what steps will you take today to fortify your own position within the digital fortress? Thanks for joining us, and keep learning.